Hey, welcome to Path to Hollywood. My name is Tony, I'm film director, and today my guest James, very talented and strongest Steadicam operator. Hi James, why you decide to be a Steadicam operator?
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me, Tony. So I appreciate you, having me on your show. I've been a Steadicam operator for the last 5 years, and I got into it from being a first AC for about 2 years. And before that, I was just shooting whatever I could. I was working at a grocery store, trying to get into the film industry, and just shooting a bunch of little rap videos for people in my in my area and things like that. But yeah, I've been in the industry now, I guess, a total of 7 years. I didn't know what a Steadicam was probably 8 years ago. And so once I started shooting videos, because I started off in photography. I thought I wanted to be a photographer. And, of course I always loved movies and TV shows and things like that, but I never really knew of a way into the film industry, and it never really seemed like an actual career. And I didn't know anybody. But once I started shooting those rap videos that I was telling you about, and I started first ACing a little bit more professionally, that's when I saw an operator on set. And as soon as I saw all that equipment and stuff, I was like, that looks really cool, I want to do that. Luckily, he was nice enough to show me his stuff, and nice enough to let me put it on and try it on for the first time. And as soon as I put it on, I knew that it's what I wanted to do. And basically just started asking a bunch of questions to other operators about how much money does it cost, what do I need to do to get one, which one should I get, what brands are out there that are good. And just kept asking questions, kept meeting people, trying to get more knowledge about the tools and just how to do the job. The first one, once I bought my rig, I basically told every single DP that I had ever worked with as a first AC that I was no longer going to be a focus puller and that I was going to be an operator. What was really helpful is that being a first AC gave me a lot of DP contacts, because I did it for a few years. And so as soon as I texted all of those people that were my friends, they basically were like, great, I have this music video with no money, can you donate your time and equipment to it? And I would just basically say yes to everything, and just practice a lot and do a lot of jobs like that for free. Gave me a lot of practice and a lot of confidence to then start to take smaller paying jobs and kind of grow from there. Being an operator is a good mix of creativity and a good mix of responsibility, but not too much responsibility. I think earlier on I thought I wanted to be a DP, but really that was just so I could be behind the camera. I have no interest or passion in lighting or anything like that. So being an operator is a good way to just have enough creative options and being able to flex those creative muscles in a way that's fulfilling, but also not having to live with the project after it's done. I shoot the project, I go home, that's it. I don't have to think about it or do post-production of any kind the way a cinematographer would have to. And I think for me personally, that was a good mix of, again, having some creativity, but also not all of the responsibility of the show. I do a lot of yoga. I think anyone that, even if you're not a Steadicam operator, I think it's helpful to do yoga, because whether you're carrying a camera on your shoulder or you're just on a dolly all day and you're kind of just hunched over, it's just important to take care of your body, because if you want to do this for 20, 30 plus years, then you want to take care of yourself, because otherwise you're going to get a phone call and you're going to feel tired and beat up and not able to physically take the job, and you might, there's potential to hurt yourself, because we're carrying weight all day, and sometimes it's not really like in the most comfortable positions, you know, like doing handheld work on your shoulder all day, looking at a monitor, like you can hurt your neck, you can hurt your shoulder, you can hurt your back. Like, so for me personally, I think doing yoga is probably the best thing I've ever done for myself, and just any sort of stretching is gonna help you do your job better and also do it for longer.
Any pillows?
Any what?
Any pillows or
Any pillows?
pillows? Yeah, for
No, I mean, I'd say maybe like get yourself like a nice bed. I remember like I recently upgraded from like this really shitty old bed, and I got like something much nicer, and it's helpful because with my old bed I would wake up and my back would hurt, which is terrible. And now I got a new bed and it doesn't do that. So if I have something, if I have like a longer term project, or really any project that's coming up that requires me to have multiple days in the rig, I'll usually, it depends on how busy I've been that week. If I could have like a week where I'm fully dedicated to like resting and stretching, doing yoga, maybe some some light lifting, all that kind of stuff really helps. But if it's like back-to-back work and then I have another project where it's more back-to-back like days in the rig, then it's usually just like a matter of going home, resting, and trying not to like overwork myself. I'll also try to like coordinate my schedule, so I'm not doing like Steadicam 5 days a week for like weeks on end, unless it's like a TV show or a movie, because again, a lot of times for projects like that, Steadicam isn't the main tool. You know, it's like maybe a scene every day, but it's not like 12 hours in the rig for weeks, you know, maybe some movies, but not, I don't think it's very typical, but it's because otherwise it's just too much, it's too much on your body. I think I mostly learned Steadicam from my peers. I definitely have and have had mentors that continue to help me, but when I was first starting off, it was definitely reaching out to other operators that are local to me, and also Greg Smith, who's a veteran Steadicam operator. He runs his own sort of like lessons called Steadicam lessons, and he's really great. I mean, he's been in the business for like 25 plus years. He's worked on really cool movies, including like Men in Black, and I know he did some time on Westworld, on the first season of Westworld. Anyways, he's a really great operator, but he does Steadicam lessons. So I've taken like, I don't know how many lessons with him, probably like 6 or 7 lessons that are like 2 hours long.
He based here in LA?
Yeah, he's here in Los Angeles, and for anyone that's like coming up as a Steadicam operator, or anyone who even has a few years doing it, getting lessons from him is really helpful because, of course, 25 years of experience like is a long time to be doing something, and if it's not like something technical that he could teach you, then it's something like you know, conducting yourself on set, like communication, things like that are things that he's been able to teach me and teach a lot of other operators who are coming up. But I would say beyond that, mostly has been other operators, like friends of mine will go out and practice at a park and try to recreate shots that were difficult for us to do on set, and we'll sort of learn from each other by watching and like sharing how we're physically moving with the camera, and also sharing like different kinds of equipment that we're using. And I think having like a community of people that you could talk to about what you do is gonna help anybody that's like, that wants to be an operator. I think it's a combination. I think you're learning on set from other people, like from their tastes and their sort of opinions on framing, and then I think it's also a mix of just watching movies and TV shows that you like, and just like really noticing why you like certain frames and why the camera's moving, why it's not moving. Again, I think it's sort of sometimes just learning from the director that you're working with, learning from the DP that you're working with, and combining like all of those things, I think is what teaches you to be an operator. Because anyone can really frame, but I think like why you're doing something, like why you're not moving the camera is almost more important than just like framing people and things like that. There's a movie, well, of course, Birdman is a really great movie. It's like 100% Steadicam. But that one's almost like an obvious pick, you know. But yeah, I'd say go watch Birdman. It's great. Anything shot by Chris Harhoff is going to be like a good movie to learn from in terms of like Steadicam operating. There's also Inside Man. It's like a bank robbery movie that has an impressive amount of Steadicam, and it's not like about making a bunch of fancy one-ers and things like that. I think in a movie like Inside Man, they're using the tool in an intelligent way to tell the story rather than just like, you know, just shoot one-ers just because it's cool, you know. So I prefer movies like that use the tool in a way that that's just more interesting than just trying to impress people. So in camera department, if it's just like a single camera show, it could be the DP, the operator, the first and second AC, the DIT. So that's already 5 people. Now, if you add like another camera, then there's even more people. So it really depends on how many cameras the show has, and that'll sort of dictate the size of the crew for camera department. Now, in terms of communication, I think the communication part of being an operator is more of the operating, is really more the job. Like at a certain point, I think anyone can sort of move the camera and frame and make it look nice and pretty, but executing and talking to the rest of your colleagues is really, I think, more of the job than what people sort of think of operating. In terms of like who I'm speaking with, it's usually like if the director and DP, if I see them often like talking about a shot and I'm not included, then I'm trying to get close to listen so I'm ready for whatever they're planning. But I try to be a part of as many of the conversations as possible, even like before the shoot. Obviously, like on set, I'm trying to just be prepared for every shot that we're doing. And once I know what the plan is from the DP or the director or both, then I'm trying to communicate that to the rest of my team so they know what we're doing. And you just want to make sure that everyone's on the same page and that everybody knows what we're doing next. So, you know, when someone asks you like, oh, how much time until this is ready, it's like you can actually give them an estimate, and everybody just knows what they're doing. You know, that's the important thing. Well, some of my recent projects, like the latest movie that I've done is a movie called Old Dads. It's a movie with Bill Burr, a comedian, who also wrote and directed the movie. It wasn't difficult by any means. It was a ton of fun, which is like the perfect kind of project for a person like me who, you know, I love my job. I take it serious, but not too serious. And of course, with a comedian directing a movie, it's a lot of fun, you know. So myself and the rest of the team, I think, had just a blast making a movie like that. And before that, you know, I've done dramas where I did a mini series called The Thing About Pam with Renee Zellweger, and it's like a crime drama with some comedy in it, but a lot of times you're shooting these dramatic scenes, and you know, you kind of feel the environment isn't as like loose and easygoing like a comedy. So you know, it kind of depends on what you're doing. And then I did a movie called Taurus with Machine Gun Kelly, which is going to come out in like a week or two, I think on November 18th. Go watch it. And before that, let's see, I did a show called, what is it? It's called The Booze, Bets, and Sex That Built America. It's a History Channel show. about the Prohibition era. So I mean, I've done a lot of different things, from like comedies to dramas to like History Channel shows. And when I'm not doing that sort of stuff, then it's just commercials. Like this project that we're gonna do now, it's just a 2-day short film, but if I'm not doing commercials that are like 1, 2, maybe 5 days long, I'm doing movies that are maybe like 3 months long, or like a month long, or a TV show that's also like 3 months long. It really just depends on what the project is, but I personally love doing longer, like 3-4 month projects, and then sprinkling in like the commercials that are 2 days, 3 days in between those longer projects, because it's nice to take breaks from doing like a TV show or a movie. But having a mix of both, I think, is more fulfilling for me, because I have friends that do shows that are like 6-9 months long, and although that sounds really fun, I also like to bounce around and get to see all my friends. I think a lot of times, like, let's say if it's like a fashion commercial, a lot of times they'll use Steadicam all day, every day, because it's a really quick way to sort of not only move the camera, but position the lens in a way that is just faster, you know? But it's not always ideal, because sometimes you're stuck sort of like shooting someone's feet and you're just sort of holding the camera, and it could just be like a tripod, but that happens a lot. If it's like a TV show, then the rig should really just live on the truck, because you never really know when you're gonna pull it out. I mean, you could always plan as much as like, as much as possible, but at the end of the day, there's gonna be a moment where you're looking at a scene and you're blocking it, and next thing you know, it's like, oh, we didn't plan this to be Steadicam, but it's gonna be Steadicam. Like, yeah, I've done like plenty of one-ers, going through in and out of houses, or like, just like long takes that are like 3-4 minutes long. I've done takes that are like 10 minutes. I did like a thing with Bob Odenkirk, which was like, he goes into like a gallery and he's looking at all these different paintings and like talking to people, and it was 10 minutes of that. And it's like, okay, it's cool to do these one-ers, but for me, what's more interesting is like who I'm working with and what I'm working on, and just like what the content of what we're shooting is. Like, that's what's more interesting to me. If I get a call where it's like, hey, we want to do this one, or it's like 3 minutes long and stuff, it's like, okay, that's cool, but like, why? So if they can give me a good reason, then that's what's going to make it either more interesting or less interesting. But nowadays, I'm more concerned with who am I working with, and that's pretty much my number one question. It's like, who's on the crew, and if it's people that I know and love to work with, then that's more interesting than just trying to pitch like a one-er that's could be cool. So it's more or less the same, preparing for the job. Like today, we're at this rental house, and I'm just here to just put the camera on the rig, make sure everything works the way I want it to. It's a really simple build, so not really like too involved. If it was like a camera with a really big zoom on it that they really want to fly with, then it would be, I guess, more challenging of a prep. But this is super easy. It's just a mini anamorphic lenses. Just, I'm coming in, it takes me like 30 minutes to an hour to really prepare the camera. In terms of like maybe specific shots, a lot of times I'll have like phone calls with the DP about what they want to do. Like I recently did a commercial where, someone's sitting at a table and then the table turns into a door and they walk through the door. And I just had like a, what's that?
Like rehearsal.
Like a rehearsal?
Rehearsal.
Yeah, well, sometimes like for that specific thing, the DP and I had just like a Zoom call, and he showed me some photos and some digital renders of like what they wanted to do. So it really depends. Like can only be as prepared as the DP and the director are. So for me personally, I'm always asking like, give me everything that you have so I could see it all and I could be on the same page and be just as prepared as them. But some jobs aren't really don't have those sort of challenges. So sometimes it's really straightforward, and it's more like you're having a phone call just to due diligence and make sure that you're not going to get anything that is going to be completely out of the blue and like something that you just didn't talk about. So it could be as simple as just a phone call to having like several phone calls and conversations about what you're doing. Yeah, absolutely zero ambition to I never want a DP. And the reason is it's just too much responsibility. Like, I think if you want a DP, you have to really love it, like to the point where it's all you love, Maybe not, but it seems that way. And for me, again, operating is perfect because I don't have to live with the project for as long as like DPs have to prepare. Like I could do a lot more projects in a month and have more variety in my life as a operator than if I was a DP having to do pre-production, then the actual production, then the post-production in terms of like coloring it and making sure it's looking the way I wanted it to. I rather just, I love what I do and I have no ambition to DP. So my rig is it's a Tiffin M1 with a Volt, and then I have a GPI Pro arm. So it's not like there's really just three major brands. It's like Tiffin, GPI Pro, and XCS. There's some other ones out there that people like, but in my opinion, those are the real actual options. I like my rig. There's some things that I wish I could change on it, but it's not that big of a deal where I'm going to fork out thousands of dollars to make like minor changes. But everyone can essentially build their rig how they prefer, and you can sort of mix and match parts. On the Tiffin rigs, unfortunately, you can't really mix and match parts, but on like a pro rig, you could get something really old and for a lot cheaper of a price than brand new and sort of like upgrade parts as you need it. And I think if I was starting over, I'd probably go down that route. But it's helpful if you meet other operators and try out their different rigs, because everyone has like a different customized setup. And so eventually you'll find what works for you and what is important to you. I have my rig dialed the way I like, so I don't really see any changes that I need to make, but eventually there'll be some new model or some new parts out there and you kind of just swap accordingly. You have to get something robust and something that's going to work with the cameras that you're working with. So like my rig, I could put, any kind of camera. I've never had any difficulty like saying like, oh, this is too heavy or like this isn't gonna work. And if you're buying from those three major brands, Tiffin, GPI Pro, or XCS, then they make rigs that you can buy and you never really have to think about like, not being able to use certain cameras and things like that. They cost, I think my rig cost about like $60,000. And again, it's difficult because if you get like an entry-level rig, you can get something that, again, you can upgrade, but eventually it'll probably cost you like $60,000, yeah. I would say I probably learn something every day, whether it's like from, maybe I'm talking to like another operator, maybe I see someone else's work, I'm like, oh, how did you do that? Or like, what was that like? I could learn from them. Maybe it's something like, I'm working with a new DP I've never worked with before, and their style is like a little bit just different from some of the other people that I've worked with. I'll learn something from them. It could be something like something technical, or it could be something in the terms of like learning how to work with someone new and their particular style of communicating with people. I feel like that's something that's really important. And so yeah, I'd say I learn something practically every day. Yes, luckily nowadays jobs find me, but I would say like earlier on, it was really important to me to just constantly reach out to people. And there's like a fine line between annoying people and like being persistent. And so I would say like try to find what that is for you. But even today, like I still reach out to people. It's just constantly evolving. Before it was like, hey, I'm I'm free, I'm new, you know, I'm willing to do like, you know, anything. And now it's more like, you know, I like your work and maybe we can work together in the future. I would say no, I don't really look at anybody as competition. Personally, I don't like viewing it that way. I don't think it's really helpful to anybody to be like comparing or thinking like, oh, I'm separate from you and we need to compete with each other. I think it's been more helpful to be a part of a community of operators and sort of like share knowledge of the craft, share knowledge of the rates that are out there, and just be a part of a community so you have friends rather than competitors. And I think that helps you advance in your career a lot faster than thinking that I need to compete with all these people. I think if you think the opposite, that I need to be friends with all these people in a genuine way and not just like because it'll help me and my interests. I think if you genuinely want to be a part of a community, that's what's going to help you more than competing. There's in Los Angeles, I think even just globally, there's enough work for everybody. So like for me personally, there's tons of new operators that are constantly moving to LA, or people that want to be an operator or buy a Steadicam. And I think it's like important to encourage and help those people because, you know, one day that was me. One day those people will, you know, be successful and they'll have people asking them, you know, for advice. And in my opinion, they should give that back and help. But that's how you build a community, in my opinion. And again, I think that's important. For me, optics, lenses aren't important to me. I only care about size and weight for the rig. But in terms of lenses that I prefer, I do like lenses that are, the DPs are gonna hate me because everyone likes vintage lenses, and vintage lenses are great, but sometimes they're not the most modern and you have to move like the lens motor around a bunch, and you know, they could be a little bit more tedious, I think, in terms of the camera build. So I personally like modern lenses where the weight is very consistent across the board in terms of the entire set of lenses. And that way, for me, I prefer efficiency over like a look, but I'm not the DP, so that's not up to me. But yeah, I think the only lenses that I put on that I've looked at and have been like extremely impressed are probably like, I think the first time I tried Cooke anamorphics, I was pretty impressed with just like, it looked impressive right off the bat. And then of course any like Panavision anamorphics are also, you put them on and you're like, wow, these are incredible. But it doesn't really matter to me what's on the camera. Because of the physics of Steadicam, it's important to, if you're flying a camera that is too light, it flies kind of like squirrely. I don't know how to describe it. Like it doesn't really like float the way you need to. You feel like you have to be a little bit more delicate with it because it's just so light. But then again, if you're carrying a camera that is extremely heavy, then it's like more taxing on the body. You can't really do as long of takes consistently back one after another as much as you can with a lighter build. So something in the middle where it's like heavy enough that the camera just feels like it floats, and also light enough for you to be able to do it all day. That's sort of what I'm trying to find. So I'm a local 600, so that's the camera union. And I would say the number one reason for me to have joined was because you know, eventually you get calls and people ask you, are you union? And if you're saying no, then you can't do the job. So the real reason to join is to be able to open up the kind of work that you could do. And then the second biggest reason for me personally was the healthcare, because, you know, we all need health insurance. So that's definitely like one of the biggest benefits of joining is to acquire some healthcare.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. And I think it's important to consider, because there is sort of like a time limit, you know. I don't think you could be like 70 years old and carrying a rig. But I mean, I have mentors of mine that are in their early 60s that are still on the biggest shows in the world, and they're still able to do, you know, all the heavy cameras, and they're still extremely fit. I don't know how they do it. But yeah, I mean, for me, in terms of like what I'll do after I can't carry the rig anymore, I'll probably still keep operating, but just, you know, I'll be behind the wheels doing remote head or like, you know, techno crane stuff. Or yeah, maybe I'll DP then. but yeah, no plans. I haven't gotten that far. So yeah, there's like workshops out there. There's like, I think Tiffin does a workshop for Steadicam operators, and they have like different tiers. I think it's like bronze, silver, gold. Again, Greg Smith does like his personal one-on-one lessons. I think his lessons are like, I forget, they're like a couple $100 for 2 hours, which is worth every penny. I've never taken like one of those workshops like I mentioned before, like the Tiffin workshop I've never taken, but I think it's like $3,000 or $4,000, and it's probably like 5 days long. And then there's another one that's also similar, like probably like a week long. I want to say it's the SOA workshop, but I don't remember.
Price about the
Probably like a couple thousand. I mean, all of these workshops are like a couple $1,000s. I mean, it is an investment, but it's important to at least like, you know, give it a try so you know whether you even want to actually be an operator, and also just sort of learn the basics and, you know, see just like if it's for you. I would say just like, if you want to be an operator, participate in the community, and those are numbers that you'll find out, because it's always going to be changing. You know, like even just within the last 2 years, the rates have climbed up because of everything that's happening economically. So, you know, we're always trying to keep up with what is fair in the market, and that's just depending on, you know, the size of the job, the size of the client that you're working for, and who's willing to take that job. But again, a lot of us know each other. Like, we pretty much all know one another to some extent. And so if we're sharing that information, which we are, it's helpful because then we could at least all sort of like combine forces in terms of helping each other out in making sure that we are keeping the price of Steadicam, you know, be fair. So for me personally, I've done jobs for free, you know, so there's going to be plenty of people that are going to be willing to do jobs for free. You know, sometimes for friends that are doing like really small personal passion projects, I'll still go out for free because they're my friends, you know. It could be like early on, I think my first year I was doing jobs that were just like a couple $100, but then, you know, once you start getting offers for like commercials and projects that are like legitimate and actually have money, then that's when you need to start to have those conversations with other people about like, hey, how much do we really cost, you know? But in terms of sharing that here, that's not something I could do. Reach out to anyone that seems friendly enough to give you their time. Try to hop on a phone call with them and ask them advice directly. And in terms of like maybe buying your first rig, save up your money as much as you can because they're very expensive. Be a part of like, there's a Steadicam forum, there's Facebook groups, there's like all sorts of chat groups now. Just find people, ask questions, try to befriend other operators, and try to just pick their brains on like, you know, what they did, because everyone's story is different. So what I did may not work for somebody else, and what somebody else did may not work for, you know, me or whatever. But yeah, there's, again, I think the most difficult thing is the real barrier to entry is buying your first rig. Because once you could do that, then it's just a matter of like how dedicated you are to looking for work, meeting people, how dedicated you are to getting better at the actual craft. And then from there, it's sort of like sky's the limit. It's just a matter of just how much time you're going to put into the game.